Intimacy is one of the most misunderstood phenomena in human existence. We speak of it constantly, we claim to desire it, we build our lives around the pursuit of it, yet we remain fundamentally confused about what intimacy actually means. This confusion is not accidental. It arises from the very core of how we have been conditioned to relate to ourselves and to others. Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, give me a like, comment below about your thought and hit subscribe button so you don't miss any video inspired by Osho's teaching. Thank you very much. When we use the word intimacy, most people immediately think of romantic relationships, of physical closeness, of sexual connection. But this is a profound reduction of something far more vast and transformative. True intimacy has nothing to do with another person, at least not in the way we typically imagine. Intimacy is first and foremost a quality of your own being, a way of existing in the world with complete openness and vulnerability. The word itself offers us a clue. Intimacy comes from the Latin, intimus, meaning innermost. To be intimate is to be in touch with your innermost nature, to lie from that deep center where you are most authentically yourself. Only when you have discovered this inner intimacy, this profound connection with your own being, can you truly meet another person in intimacy. Otherwise, what we call intimacy is merely two strangers clinging to each other in the darkness, two frightened egos seeking comfort and validation. We have been taught to fear intimacy even as we claim to seek it. From childhood, we learn to build walls around ourselves, to protect our vulnerability, to hide our true feelings and authentic responses. We learn to wear masks, to play roles, to present carefully curated versions of ourselves to the world. By the time we reach adulthood, we have become so skilled at this performance that we no longer know where the mask ends and our true face begins. This fear of intimacy is rooted in a deeper fear of ourselves. We are afraid to look within, afraid of what we might discover in the depths of our own being. We have been told that we are not enough, that we must constantly improve and perfect ourselves, that our natural state is somehow flawed or inadequate. This conditioning creates a fundamental split within us, a rejection of our own being that makes true intimacy impossible. When you reject yourself, you cannot be intimate with yourself. And when you cannot be intimate with yourself, you cannot be intimate with another. What happens instead is that you seek in the other what you have failed to find in yourself. You look to another person to complete you, to validate you, to give you the sense of wholeness and acceptance that you cannot give yourself. This is not intimacy. This is dependency, neediness, a desperate grasping that masquerades as love. True intimacy requires tremendous courage. It requires the willingness to drop all pretense, all performance, all the carefully constructed defenses that you have built around your heart. It requires you to stand naked, not just physically but emotionally and spiritually, without any protection, without any guarantee of safety. This is terrifying for the ego, which exists only to protect and defend itself. The ego thrives on separation. It defines itself in opposition to others, constantly comparing, judging, competing. The ego cannot be intimate because intimacy dissolves boundaries, and the ego is nothing but a boundary, a wall that separates you from existence. To be intimate is to allow this wall to dissolve, to let yourself merge with life itself, to lose the rigid sense of I that keeps you isolated and alone. This is why intimacy is so rare, even in relationships that claim to be intimate. Two egos cannot be intimate. They can negotiate, compromise, make agreements, but they cannot truly meet. True meeting happens only when the ego is absent, when two beings encounter each other without the interference of thought, judgment, expectation, or demand. Most of what we call love is actually a transaction. I will give you this if you give me that. I will love you if you behave in certain ways, if you meet my needs, if you conform to my expectations. This is not love. This is a business arrangement, a contract between two egos. Real love, real intimacy, has no conditions. It simply is, like the sun shining or the rain falling, without any expectation of return. To open to intimacy, you must first become intimate with your own aloneness. This is perhaps the most difficult teaching to accept, because we have been conditioned to fear aloneness, to see it as something negative, something to be avoided at all costs. We fill our lives with noise, distraction, constant activity, anything to avoid facing ourselves in silence and solitude. But aloneness is not loneliness. Loneliness is the pain of feeling separated from others, the ache of isolation. Aloneness is the joy of being complete unto yourself, of discovering that you are already whole, that you need nothing and no one to complete you. When you are comfortable in your aloneness, when you have discovered the richness and fullness of your own being, then you can meet another person without neediness, without demand, without the desperate clinging that destroys so many relationships. This does not mean that you become cold or distant or unloving. Quite the opposite. When you are rooted in your own being, when you have found your own center, you become capable of a love that is far more profound and authentic than anything the ego can produce. You can love without possessiveness, without jealousy, without the constant fear of loss. You can allow the other person complete freedom because you are not dependent on them for your happiness or sense of self-worth. Intimacy also requires the courage to be seen. We spend so much energy hiding ourselves, presenting only our best angles, concealing our flaws and vulnerabilities. We are terrified that if someone really saw us, saw all of us including the parts we judge as ugly or unacceptable, they would reject us. So we keep our true selves hidden, and then we wonder why we feel so alone even in the midst of relationship. But this hiding is exhausting. It requires constant vigilance, constant performance. And it makes real connection impossible. How can someone love you if they don't know you? How can you feel truly accepted if you are only showing a carefully edited version of yourself? The paradox is that when you finally find the courage to reveal yourself completely, to let yourself be fully seen with all your imperfections and vulnerabilities, you often discover that you are more lovable, not less. The things you thought were unacceptable are often the very things that make you human, relatable, real. Your vulnerability is not a weakness. It is the doorway to genuine connection. Intimacy also means being present. Most of us are rarely present. We are lost in thoughts about the past or fantasies about the future. We are planning, analyzing, judging, comparing. Even when we are physically with another person, we are often miles away in our minds. True intimacy requires that you bring your full attention to this moment, to this person, to this encounter. It requires that you listen not just with your ears but with your whole being, that you see not just with your eyes but with your heart. This quality of presence is itself a form of love. When you give someone your complete attention, without judgment or agenda, you are offering them something precious and rare. You are saying, in effect, in this moment, you are the most important thing in my existence. This kind of attention is healing. It allows the other person to relax, to open, to reveal themselves more fully. But presence cannot be manufactured or forced. It arises naturally when you are not caught up in your own thoughts and concerns, when you are not trying to impress or defend or manipulate. It arises when you are simply here, open and available, without any barrier between yourself and life. Opening to intimacy also means accepting the other person exactly as they are, without any desire to change or fix them. This is perhaps the most difficult aspect of intimacy, because we all have ideas about how things should be, how people should behave. We enter relationships with expectations and demands, and then we spend our energy trying to mold the other person into our image of what they should be. This is violence, not love. Real love accepts. It does not try to change or improve or perfect. It sees the other person in their totality and says yes to all of it, the light and the shadow, the strengths and the weaknesses. This does not mean you become passive or allow yourself to be mistreated. It simply means you see clearly, without the distortion of your own projections and expectations. When you stop trying to change the other person, something miraculous happens. They begin to relax. They no longer need to defend themselves or prove themselves. They can simply be. And in this space of acceptance, real transformation becomes possible, not because you demanded it, but because acceptance creates the conditions in which growth naturally occurs. Intimacy is also about honesty, but not the brutal honesty that is often just an excuse for cruelty. Real honesty comes from a place of love and awareness. It means speaking your truth without blame or judgment, sharing your feelings without making the other person responsible for them. It means being willing to be vulnerable, to admit when you are hurt or scared or confused, rather than hiding behind anger or withdrawal. This kind of honesty requires that you first be honest with yourself. You must be willing to look at your own patterns, your own conditioning, your own contribution to whatever difficulties arise. Most people are quick to see the faults of others but blind to their own. Real intimacy requires that you turn the light of awareness on yourself, that you take responsibility for your own experience rather than blaming others. To open to intimacy is to open to life itself in all its unpredictability and mystery. It is to let go of control, to surrender to the flow of existence, to trust in something larger than your own small ego. This is not easy. The ego wants certainty, security, guarantees. But life offers none of these things. Life is constantly changing, constantly moving, and intimacy requires that you move with it, that you remain flexible and open rather than rigid and defended. In the end, intimacy is not something you achieve or accomplish. It is not a goal to be reached or a skill to be mastered. It is a way of being, a quality of presence that you bring to each moment. It is available right now, in this very instant, if you are willing to drop your defenses and open your heart. It requires nothing but your willingness to be real, to be vulnerable, to be fully alive. The opportunity to connect fearlessly is always present. It is not dependent on finding the right person or creating the perfect circumstances. It is simply a matter of your own openness, your own courage, your own willingness to risk everything for the sake of authentic connection. When you open to intimacy in this way, you discover that you are not separate from life, not isolated and alone, but intimately connected to everything that exists. This is the greatest gift, the deepest fulfillment, the ultimate homecoming.